So Smackdown, I did, as I said, I got up early this morning right before we went on the air, and I've watched as much as I could to try to get them or let them get me excited about the Royal Rumble. It may have been a potentially a fruitless task, but nevertheless, I will save all the Bloodlines participation for the end because, again, they were the recurring theme and the thread through the show. And to be honest, that's the only thing that keeps you interested. But briefly talking about some of the other things, they're having an 8-team tag team tournament now to determine who gets a shot at the Raw tag team title. So now did we miss in the holiday season and the spirit of things? Did we miss where they gave a good reason why the Usos are defending each title individually now, or did they just announce it and we're going with it?
I don't know, because I hate the commentators so much, Michael Cole and Wade Barrett, that I don't listen to them as much as I could. As much as I can avoid them, I do. So I don't know what the reasoning is.
And, you know, I've seen many times Michael Cole comes walking down the street, you cross to the other side.
I would knock him over. Why would I cross? It's my street.
Well, you're avoiding him.
He can avoid me.
It might not be your street.
Any street I'm on is my street. He can avoid me.
I'll tell you what. Michael Cole has a pretty goddamn good reputation on the mean streets of Stamford, Connecticut, I'll have you know. Well, anyway, the first match in this tournament was Sheamus and Drew McIntyre against the Viking Raiders with their young lady Valhalla next to them. I thought Paul Bearer was the best one ever, but Valhalla. Brian, here's a question. I don't know if you're up on your Norse mythology. Did Vikings have tattoos?
That's a very good question I had never thought of before. I don't believe they did, but like you said, I'm not up on my Norse mythology.
I don't know. They may have had different types of tattoo parlors back in the days of the Vikings. Anyway, Michael Cole at the top of the program sent out condolences over Jay Briscoe, so they can mention him on the Fox network, on broadcast television, in a rival company. But over on TBS, anyway.
And let's give them credit for that. You know, and a lot of people in that locker room. And a lot of people in that locker room came from Ring of Honor. And a lot of people were really upset about this whole thing. And WWE and Triple H deserve credit for letting that get on the air and for broadcasting that to the world. That was actually a really nice thing.
And it just magnifies the ridiculosity of what was going on the other channel. But anyway, besides that, old Valhalla's outfit is way over the top. With the antlers she's got on, can you see if there was an errant dive and she happened to be standing there, somebody could be impaled on her headgear?
Oh my God.
I did notate that Sheamus and the Bald Viking are the palest wrestlers ever. But in all seriousness, there's nothing wrong with this match. I liked the Viking Raiders before the WWE when they got to goofy gimmick, and now they've tried to serious them up. But it's just, it's the WWE presentation. There was nothing wrong with this match, and these guys hit hard, and they're all professionals. It's just, I don't care about the matches because they don't. And I'm not talking about the talent. I'm talking about the writers or whoever is in charge of formatting this program that makes the matches the most insignificant part of it. And finally, Sheamus beat Ivar with his kick, and we were a half an hour into the program, past the first segment. Do you have any further clarification or elucidation, Brian?
Not really. It's just weird to love tag team wrestling and not want to see their tag team matches. And you know, some of it is the fault of the people, but it's actually just the fault of the way all of these people have been used for way too long. And, you know, I know a lot of people like you raved about the Vikings before they got there and became Vikings. But maybe it's because I've only really seen them as Vikings. I've never seen too much. And Sheamus has been there a very long time. And wasn't McIntyre getting a push again a few weeks ago? Now he's in a tag team? I don't know. This was the opening of the show.
He's a brawling brute also because of the accents.
It hit me. Anyway. It hit me watching the Brawling Brutes the other day. They're Vince's, because they were created by Vince.
Yes,
they're his modern hillbillies.
Yeah,
he always loves having like the little one just run around act crazy and the big one, like they're his hillbillies for today.
That's it, just because now they're global in reach. So he thinks the new West Virginia is Scotland or whatever, Anyway, let's get to the, as I said, we're skipping some bloodline. We'll come back to it. But the thing that I would assume that most people are talking about, and I'm not in universal agreement, obviously, the whole Bray Wyatt thing again. Poor LA Knight. He's in the ring. He's talking about Bray Wyatt. And he's trying to do the best he can with what anybody would be saying. What is this fucking guy's problem? He is Howdy. He's not Howdy. I know who he is. He's a fucking nobody. I know who I am. I'm LA Knight. LA Knight does a great promo. They've done nothing to make people believe in him or to believe that he's even comparable or competitive with this fucking Wyatt that's come back that in the past has been literally immortal and invulnerable.
It is really weird. It is really weird. Here's a guy that looks and sounds like a wrestler who we all talked about how misused he was as a male model scout or whatever he was. And then they just turned him back to LA Knight and all of a sudden just dropped him into this Bray Wyatt thing. But
yeah,
they didn't give fans enough time to care about him.
Yeah, it's with no build to begin with, much less if he had been LA Knight consistently and then suddenly he gets dropped in this thing. They still didn't do that much with LA Knight to get him ready for a spot against a supposed top guy, but especially coming off the worst gimmick ever in history and just the stupidest reason for it to get into it and to get out of it, where he became Max Dupree for a month and a half or whatever. It's just, so now he's got to go out there and do these promos and then put up with this shit. And he beat Nobody Smith in 30 seconds. And then suddenly on the screen up pops the Firefly Funhouse. And we've got the Buzzard and the Pig and the Rabbit and Bray Wyatt's ass crack. And they're rebuilding the Funhouse and the puppets are speaking to Bray. I can't understand the chipmunk voice. Is it the chip? Well, it's a rabbit, but it sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks. I can't understand what the puppets were saying to fucking Bray Wyatt to begin with. There's a pig eating chocolate. Wyatt's talking to the rabbit. There's cheesy music in the background. And then Captain Howdy shows up on the screen, says, I told you so over and over. And, it's your fault, whatever. And then Bray Wyatt all of a sudden gets serious in the middle of this lunacy, says, I hope you're satisfied. I'm not, by the way. I'm not satisfied in any way, but I hope you're satisfied. You don't realize what you've done. You better be scared when the lights go out. And then, have a nice day. I said, Mick Foley should sue. And they play the fucking goofy music out of it. It's official, ladies and gentlemen. Bray Wyatt sucks. He says shits. He's a great promo talent that he does nothing with. This whole deal is fucking rotten. It makes no sense. It's phony. It buries anybody that's involved with it. How do you book anybody after this guy gets finished with them? And we were blaming Vince. Well, they've been doing this and Vince has been gone. And now that Vince is back, I don't think suddenly his first order of business was get that Firefly Funhouse back on television. This is what Bray Wyatt wants to do. He doesn't want to use his obvious vocal talent to be a believable kick-ass wrestler in the mode of his family tree. He wants to be this goddamn supernatural fucking moron that does this inexplicable shit that clogs this program up. Brian, do you have any ray of sunshine in this?
This is exactly what I told you to expect. This is exactly what I thought we would get from this guy. He's not had one match. Not that I want to see him have a match. And it's been nonstop speeches, characters. Now we're back to this fucking Firefly Funhouse. I had a little bit of hope here. LA Knight comes out there. Good promo. He's intense. You look at his eyes, he's intense, which makes him stand out compared to everyone else. And he's calling out how weird all this shit is. They give him a squash win. I'm like, all right, something going on here. And then all of this. And then most insulting thing maybe also how it just ends. The Firefly Funhouse ends, and that's it. We never see what LA Knight has to say or anything else. Just go to commercial. No, this is terrible stuff.
And scene.
I don't know. I guess you could justify Bray Wyatt's contract with the merch that he moves from his skits, but then just do something else. I mean, that's the thing. There's all these things that if we start just doing things based on what will sell merch, it's a slippery slope because there's lots of shit that has nothing to do with wrestling that you could sell a ton of. But I don't like Bray Wyatt. I don't understand why anyone in the world finds any of this entertaining or good.
Or even understands it. And we talk about selling merchandise. You know what? If they invested in a bunch of, these fucking commercials you see where it's, oh, you've got to get this new amazing spotlight or this new amazing fish gutter or whatever. But hey, we're not going to make any more of them, so you got to order it quick because they've been discontinued. Yeah. They'll get a bunch of those and just do a segment on those.
That is the new scam, isn't it? You just brought that up, and I've noticed in a bunch of these.
It's the greatest product that's ever been made, folks. You can't live your life without this. But unfortunately, they've been discontinued. We're not going to make it anymore.
I saw that in one commercial, then I saw it in another. I was like, is this the same commercial I saw the other one in? And it wasn't.
So, one would think if it's so impossible to live your life without this product, that somebody else would pick that manufacturing up. Anyway, speaking of living your life without this product, so the tag team tournament continued on SmackDown, and I must admit, I watched most of it, the good parts, Skid Row versus Los Lotharios, because I am now mesmerized by Flop Dollar. I can't take my eyes off him. It's like you never know what kind of entertainment you're going to get. And again, he has the attitude that he is performing like a goddamn Olympic gymnast while he looks like a fucking mattress with half the stuffing pulled out of it. And so I determined that I was going to watch whatever he was involved in this match. And Brian, do you remember what the first thing he did in this entire match was?
I don't. I remember him kicking someone in the corner, but I don't know if that was the first thing he did.
Well, no, the very first thing that Flop Dollar did in this match was he tagged into it. He was standing on the apron of the ring, and his partner, old Adonis, is in the ring, and Adonis goes to tag Flop Dollar. And Flop's first move is to tag in, and he missed it. He missed the tag. He did so. I've never seen any, and remember, I've managed a variety of tag team experts, and there's a way that you agree with your partner on how you're going to do tags so that you don't look like an idiot and miss a fucking tag. But in this case, he did something I've never seen before. He held his hand up, and had the back of his hand was toward his partner in the ring. Like the guy was supposed to tag the back of his hand instead of palm to palm. I've never seen anybody do that before. And then as he's holding his hand up, when Adonis goes to slap it, Flop moves his hand at that exact moment and they miss the tag. So the first physical movement that this guy made in his match was just to tag in, and he missed it. So then, again, this guy is amazing. He's mesmerizing. He tried to beel the guy out of the corner, but his timing was off. He gave him a rotten beel because the guy couldn't tell from his movement what he was doing. It was off rhythm. But then he gets him down over the announcer's desk, and Flop Dollar can trash talk great. And he's got a face like, oh, yeah, and he hit the guy with a great chop. He can chop. And then they got back in the ring, and he got a rear waist lock, and he looked like a drunk underwater again, trying to grab the Lothario's pants where they could do the spot where Lothario leaps forward for the tag, and Flop Dollar is holding onto his pants, and they're tearaway pants. And Flop ends up with the pants in his hand and a confused look on his face because the guys dived out of him and tagged. Well, this was such a cold, dead tag because nobody got it. It was so quick that it was one of those deals where they ran off and left the people. And by the time that they realized what had happened, and plus it wasn't an exciting match and it had only gone 3 minutes to begin with, if that. I don't even think I was 3 minutes in. So while Flop is confused, he's standing there. Adonis tags himself in by slapping Flop's shoulder. And then the other Lothario made a comeback. And Adonis schoolboyed one of them, 1, 2, 3, while Flop was wallering around on the floor. Like I said, a 3-minute match. But I couldn't. I rewound it 3 or 4 different times to watch him miss the tag. Amazing. Your thoughts?
He is an entertaining guy to watch now that we've all seen how bad he is. I will say he looks sickly. I know you criticized him a lot for his weight. He looked better with weight. Like, remember when King Kong Bundy lost a lot of weight and was like,
yes,
you're still a big guy, but you're not Bundy.
Yeah. He looked, at least he had something that nobody else had when he weighed 400. Well, few other people had. When he weighed 400 pounds and he looked like a fucking refrigerator. Now he just looks like, he's the Macy's parade that sprung a leak.
I'll never complain about AEW's tag team division when you see this tag team division here on SmackDown.
Well, moving on. And I'm not going to, again, the best thing on the show was the same thing. I think we said it was the best thing on Raw or whatever, the last thing we watched, a Cody package. The surgery, the therapy, the comments from the doctor, from the physical therapist, the way they put the video together, the juxtaposing the bruising and then the scar from the surgery, and now he's working out in the gym. And he says, here, this is where I can make myself bulletproof. This kind of stuff makes people stars, overcoming adversity, returning for a goal. It's real shit. It's real sports. And you would have to think that Cody's had a lot of input in this because it's so different, such a different tone than most of the things that the WWE does that they can't help themselves from, winking at a little bit. But this is straightforward. It's the best thing on the program.
The word is that Jeremy Borash is the one behind these pieces.
And that makes sense. Jeremy's got a good head if you let him. Well, it doesn't look very good, but it's, there's smart up in there somewhere under all that ugly. If you let him do what he does best, he can come up with shit like this. But anyway, I don't know how I felt about what. Go ahead.
Cody better win the Rumble. The way they're building him up in these things.
Oh, yeah.
They're building him up to get a big pop in the Rumble. And I think he's the only person so far you could think of that anyone's anticipating getting to see in the Rumble besides any surprise people. The way this is going so far, he better win that fucking Rumble.
Well, but here's one thing that is a strong point of Vince McMahon's that can't be said for other people named Vince. Sometimes when the fans overwhelmingly want something to happen, Vince McMahon will give it to them. Where even if he does have something to do with creative or is in charge of the whole shebang or whatever, I think the Triple H, everybody understands the way this is being built, that Cody better win the Rumble. Vince understands that even though people expect it, sometimes you have to give them what they expect, so I don't expect that to be a problem with him trying to change things. If it was another era or another guy named Vince, he would want to swerve people and kill the moment so people didn't call it. And that's, sometimes when people go to see a particular fucking movie, they expect to see that fucking movie. They don't want you to change it on them at the last minute in the projectionist booth. So anyway, but as I mentioned, I don't know how I felt about Charlotte and Cruella de Vil. So I'm going to ask you first. This segment had its positives and negatives, but what did you think overall of their interaction here in this in-ring, face-to-face confrontation they had?
Another really awkward women's promo segment. We just saw Becky and Bayley on Raw, and then there was this, and this is week 2 of Charlotte, or week 3 of Charlotte as a babyface, and Sonya. I mean, I kind of was a little sick of Sonya on this show last year from everything she was doing, and then Pierce comes out and confronts her. I wasn't crazy about this, but I'm also going into this not convinced that Charlotte should be a babyface.
Well, I can see why that they want her to be a babyface and why they brought her back as a babyface, because she's been gone for a while, and they were glad to see a name come back. And the past couple weeks, she's done a good job with it. I'm not saying she didn't hear. It's obvious they had a VTR of her and Cruella having the big backstage pull apart last week, and we criticized that just because they did a great job with it, but everybody does them. It wasn't anything new. It's so played out, right? That was the criticism. But Charlotte comes out here, she's a pure baby face, woo, doing the whole thing. And she didn't say much before she called out DeVille to come out and face her and say these things to her face. And immediately the music plays. Not immediately, they waited 10 seconds. And as Sonya comes out, old Cruella, as I call her, she's already got the microphone. And this is what my problem is with these shows, with all of the WWE shows under their umbrella. And we talked about AEW has patterns. They have interviews where the intended interviewee barely says anything before they get interrupted, shut down, beat up, assaulted, impregnated by some whatever. With the WWE, the talent runs the show and everything develops the same way, and there is nothing spontaneous about it. There's no realism. There's no of the moment. The talent, because somebody comes out and speaks ill about a person and calls them to come out. And that person immediately comes out with music queued up and ready at the instant. And then they interact with each other, not in an argument like anybody would have if they were mad at each other, didn't like each other, just wanted to talk trash to each other even hype a fight. They have an interchange or an interaction that's presented as a play developing in front of the audience, that's scripted argument verbiage about differing opinions with little personal zingers that the writers think might be cute. And it's all the fucking and then the other person, while one's talking, the other stands there and smirks at the little jab the other one just made. Cruella did the best of the bunch here. She did a fired up promo and did a good job. She got the people up a little bit and got some heat with them. But and then the same thing that happens. Charlotte finally, well, how about we fight right here, right now? And the heel says no. And then she does the fake walk off and stops, and then turns and walks back with purpose and says, unless it's for the title. And then Adam Pearce comes out saying, hey, what's going on now? Blah, blah, blah. And when Charlotte turns her back, Cruella hits her from behind and then bails out on the floor, and nothing happens. Charlotte sells there, pissed off. Cruella's smiling. Pearce is confused. End.
Do you want to see that match? Does anyone come out of that wanting to see that match?
No, because they see this. It's the same thing developed and orchestrated the same way all the time in the same genre, the same flavor, just with different people doing words that someone else has written for them. Any final thoughts on that one?
No.
Okay, the tag team tournament continued. Ridge and Butch against Ludwig and Marcel of the Imperium. And I'm thinking, okay, all four of these guys look like athletes. Their shit is nice and crisp. They're doing some action. I'll give this a minute, and that's what they gave it. After 90 seconds of this, they went to a commercial break. They were gone for 3.5 minutes. So they were gone for more than twice as long as they had wrestled. When they came back, Stace had asked me a question, and I answered it and resumed watching in time to see them hit their finish. Imperium, they won. 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes of this made air. But that's better than the next one, because the tag team tournament continued with the minimum male models against the lucha suits. And I just completely skipped that because, my God, seriously, at this point, I'm waiting to see the bloodline, and I'm waiting to see the big main event, which is not a match, again, on their program. AEW gave us Darby Allin and Kushida, which is not a main event in any building in this country. And SmackDown gave us a main event that's not a match at all. Contract signing with Owens and Roman. But at least with the stars, you figure something might happen, right? So from the start of the program, the entire bloodline had entered into the garage of the arena in a fleet of SUVs, and they all got out, and they're celebrating, and there's Sammy, and there's the Usos, Solo, Heyman gets out. Roman, here he comes. Sammy goes for the fist bump. Roman turns and walks off on him, won't give him the fist bump. So then later on in the program, Sammy was in the bloodline locker room talking to Roman with the Wyatt Heyman's facials and just any slight reaction. I just keep my eyes on him. He's incredible. But Sammy's like, is there heat? The old Austin Idol, is there heat? It's not scalding, but I can feel it. It's there. Roman wants Sammy to tell the truth about last week. What went on? And Sammy, well, I was disappointed that the Usos helped me. I thought I was going to get to do it on my own. And Roman says, oh, so now I got to run my plans by you, the honorary Us. I could get the fuck out of here. And he kicked him out of the locker room. So it's looking bad for Sammy.
What'd you think of that? The whole segment there where, again, they're ignoring the fact the camera's right in front of them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at this point, we have to live with that.
Unfortunately.
Be grateful for small favors.
But beyond that issue, what do you think of this whole thing with Sammy there and then Roman just turns the tables on him? You could tell by Sammy's facial reactions.
Yeah.
Why do we have to do this every week? Why do I have to run everything by you? What do you think about this part of the show-long angle?
I like it because it's keeping the people that are rooting for Sammy to somehow come out of this good or successful or whatever. I'm talking about the fans. They're cheering Sammy. They want him to do something. They like him. They like what he's doing with this, and they want to see more of him. But it can't just every week be, sunshine, lollipops, rainbows, and waterfalls. There has to be some kind of conflict or tension. And they've been doing this with a slow build, and they're still not ready to choke slam each other to hell or whatever, but you can tell that now people are starting to get a little more tense about, oh, is Roman going to do something to Sammy? Or will Sammy turn the tables and join? They're wondering what might happen, and they're interested in it. Imagine that. In wrestling these days, I'll take it. But I like it because it can't all be nice. Sammy has to be in some risk or some jeopardy into people's mind to keep people focused on him.
So what about Heyman then turning to Roman as soon as Sammy left the room?
Well, that's the thing. The next thing you hear out of Heyman and Roman talking is Paul said, I never liked Shmuley anyway. I never liked him since day one. And then he carefully, prefaces his pitch to Roman as your wise man. It would be, improper of me not to bring up. And this you've heard this a million times. It's an old Vince line. I'm not saying he fed it to him, but everybody knows up there it's an old Vince line. Heyman asked Roman, isn't it better to have Sammy inside the castle pissing out than outside the castle pissing in? And that's an old Vince line from 30 years ago. So obviously they are conspiring to use Sami Zayn, as Owens is trying to tell Sammy, but Sammy doesn't believe it yet. And then later on in the program, Heyman goes, go ahead.
You know what would help Sammy find out if he watched the program?
Well, again, we have to, to get any kind of entertainment out of this shit these days, we have to just work with them on certain things. But then Heyman goes to Sammy and says, hey, Roman wants to see you. So now they're in the back again. And Roman's like, oh, okay, Sammy, you want to be part of the team? You want full communication. Okay. And Sammy's relieved. But then Roman says, well, I expect the same love and respect from you as I give out. And Sammy assures her the bloodline is first. I'll do anything So Roman tells him, go find the Usos, get the exit ready, get the plane started or whatever. As soon as this signing is over, we're out of here. And gives him the fist. And the people popped when Roman Reigns gave Sammy the fist bump in the fucking locker room backstage. They popped watching it on the monitor. So this is one of the only things they really care about. But after all that had occurred, when we come up for the contract signing, which they've milked throughout the program, there's 10 minutes on the air again, like there is in most of these contract signing segments. And the Bloodline entrance takes up 4 minutes. So now we're 6 minutes to the top of the hour. Roman sits down, puts his feet up on the table. Nothing happens for another minute or so. And then suddenly Owens appears. He's come from the back door or the front door, whatever. He appears on the side of the ring and pulls. That's charitable. Poor Solo. Owens grabbed Solo with one hand while Owens is on the apron and Solo's in the ring. And suddenly this fucking fire plug of a Samoan just flies over the top rope and out. But Owens is in and kicks Roman, gives him a fucking stunner before Roman ever sees him coming. And then he beats up Solo and the Usos. I'm like, my God, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. Here is Kevin Owens beats up 3 full-blooded Samoans and then comes back in and hits a pop-up powerbomb on Roman Reigns through the table that's set up in the ring. Again, it's preposterous because it's Owens. And his gimmick is not exactly Ken Shamrock, the world's most dangerous man. But I agree, they've got a title match and they've got a big pay-per-view and they've got to get some interest in this. So as he's laid waste to every Samoan from the island, then Heyman's begging in the corner and holding the belts and the contract. And as Owens approaches and menaces Paul, who squeals, please, no, I'm a father. Owens takes the contract and signs it, and just then Sami Zayn appears, jumps up on the apron of the ring with a bewildered look on his face, and Owens tosses the contract to Sami, who catches it, and Owens takes off before the other Bloodline members can get to him. So now there's poor Sami in possession of that contract that I'm sure Roman is not going to be very happy about. What's going to happen next week? I can't wait to find out.
That's right. It's the only thing people care about that's happening in WWE right now is the stuff with the Bloodline and Sami and Owens.
And again, most of it not involving matches. Just, so that's the difference in AEW and WWE. The AEW fans are going crazy, jumping up and down like their heads are on fire for matches involving green guys and shitty talents. And over here, they've got the most professionally trained crew in the history of wrestling. And the matches are the least exciting thing and made the least important thing on the whole program.
Yeah, whether it's Bray Wyatt, who we don't like, and we've spoken at length about that, or Roman Reigns, the big comparison is they never wrestle. We never see these guys wrestle. One is a multi-segment, week-long Bloodline thing, and the other is a multi-segment, week-long spiritual spooky thing. On the same show. One of them's clicking and one of them's terrible.
I think they should get Svengoolie to be in charge of the Firefly Funhouse. Then they'd get some ratings.
He is the highest rated show on MeTV, by far.
And boy, I'll tell you what, and he'd probably do a better job of corralling all the evil demon-possessed puppets than Bray Wyatt does either. But